48, Musiq Soulchild is finally ready to reveal the truth about the rumors that nearly destroyed his career. In 2014, fans turned on him completely when he released music under the name The Husel. They called it trash. They said he had lost his mind. They didn't know he was actually losing everything.
My whole career, I've been dealing with that crap my whole life before I did the whole music thing, so I ain't scared of nobody saying stuff, you know what I'm saying?
His relationship with Kameelah Williams from 702 became tabloid fodder on reality TV. Then came the other baby mama drama. Then the label dropped him.
Like, it was bad, I had bad nerves, I was stressed out, I was in the hospital, I had a nervous breakdown, all of that. It was crazy. A lot of people don't know this about me.
This is how the king of neo-soul's empire crumbled from the inside out. So, let's get into it. Talib Hassan Johnson was born into chaos on September 16, 1977, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. As the eldest of 9 children in a strict Muslim household, survival meant staying invisible. His parents enforced religious rules with iron discipline, leaving little room for the creativity burning inside him. When Talib was just a toddler, a feeding accident with his uncle left him with a lazy eye that would plague him for life. The physical imperfection made him even more withdrawn in a house where being different meant being wrong. While his 8 brothers and 1 sister followed the rigid path their parents demanded, Talib found refuge in music that wasn't allowed in their home. At 17, he made the decision that would define everything. He dropped out of high school and left home to pursue music full-time. His family saw it as rebellion against their faith. Talib saw it as his only chance at survival. With nowhere to go and no money, he started performing on Philadelphia street corners, beatboxing for spare change, and doing a cappella versions of songs that moved him. The streets of Philadelphia in the mid-1990s were unforgiving to a skinny kid with a lazy eye and big dreams. Talib spent months sleeping wherever he could find shelter, performing at open mic nights at jazz clubs, and slowly building a reputation in the underground scene. Other performers started calling him Musiq because music seemed to flow through everything he did. The transformation from Talib to Musiq wasn't just about a stage name, it was about becoming someone his family couldn't reject. But the weight of representing neo-soul authenticity while hiding his personal struggles created pressure that would eventually break him. He added Soulchild to honor the legends who came before him. Not knowing it would become a burden he'd later feel unworthy of carrying. In 1998, after years of grinding in Philadelphia's underground scene, DJ Jazzy Jeff's A Touch of Jazz Productions discovered him. The deal with Def Soul Records came in 1998, but success felt hollow. He was finally getting recognition for his talent, but he'd lost his family's approval and was building his career on a foundation of trauma he'd never addressed. His debut album, I Just Wanna Sing, dropped in 2000 to critical acclaim and commercial success. The hit single Just Friends, Sunny, became an instant neo-soul classic, and Love spent 22 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100.
We can still be cool,
But while fans celebrated his artistic breakthrough, Musiq was struggling with the pressure of sudden fame and the unresolved pain from his childhood. The early success masked deeper problems that would surface years later. He was already showing signs of the mental health struggles that would eventually lead to his mysterious disappearances and controversial persona experiments. The lazy eye that had made him self-conscious as a child now became part of his distinctive look, but internally, he was still the insecure teenager who had fled his family's strict household. By 2002, with his second album, Juslisen, hitting #1 on the Billboard 200 and going platinum, Musiq Soulchild appeared to be living the dream. The album's singles, Half Crazy and Don't Change, cemented his place as neo-soul royalty. But the foundation was already cracking underneath the success, and the personal demons that would eventually consume him were quietly growing stronger. Between 2000 and 2003, Musiq Soulchild owned neo-soul completely. His first 3 albums established him as the voice of authentic R&B for a new generation, blending traditional soul with hip-hop influences in ways that felt both nostalgic and revolutionary. But behind the smooth vocals and critical acclaim, the pressure was building toward an inevitable breakdown. The touring schedule was brutal, and the constant attention from fans and media began taking its toll. Musiq had always been intensely private, stemming from his traumatic childhood in that strict Muslim household. Now he was expected to be constantly available for interviews, photo shoots, and public appearances. The shy kid who had performed on street corners to survive was suddenly being asked to be the face of an entire musical movement. His third album, Soul Star, in 2003, went gold and included hits like For the Night and Who Knows. But Musiq was already beginning to feel trapped by his own success.
And who knows, somehow.
He started experiencing what he would later describe as creative suffocation, feeling like he had to keep making the same type of music to satisfy fans and label executives, even when his artistic instincts were pulling him in different directions. The label pressure became unbearable. Def Soul wanted him to stick to the formula that had made him successful, but Musiq felt like he was becoming a caricature of himself. Every song had to sound like classic Musiq Soulchild, which meant he couldn't experiment or evolve without risking his career. The weight of being labeled the king of neo-soul started feeling more like a prison than an honor. During this period, he was also struggling with the lazy eye condition that had affected him since childhood. While it had become part of his distinctive look, it continued to cause him physical discomfort and self-consciousness. Combined with the stress of fame and constant scrutiny, his mental health began to deteriorate in ways that weren't visible to the public.
It was bad, I had bad nerves, I was stressed out, I was in the hospital, I had a nervous breakdown, all of that. It was crazy. A lot of people don't know this about me.
The breaking point came when he realized he had no control over his own music anymore. Despite being the artist, major decisions about his career were being made by executives who cared more about profit margins than artistic integrity. He wanted to write and produce more of his own material, but the label preferred working with established hitmakers who could guarantee radio-friendly results. In 2003, after the release of Soul Star, Musiq made a decision that shocked everyone. He took a 4-year break from music. He told the public it was to explore new creative directions. But the truth was much darker. He was on the verge of a complete mental breakdown and needed time to figure out who he was beyond the Musiq Soulchild persona that had consumed his identity. The hiatus would prove to be just the beginning of a downward spiral that would nearly destroy his career and personal life completely. What Musiq Soulchild called a creative hiatus, his inner circle knew was actually a mental health crisis that almost ended his career permanently. From 2003 to 2007, he disappeared from public view while battling depression, anxiety, and an identity crisis that threatened everything he had built. The first year was the worst. Musiq had walked away from millions of dollars in touring revenue and promotional opportunities, but he couldn't bring himself to care about the financial consequences. He spent months in isolation, barely leaving his Philadelphia apartment, consumed by questions about whether his success had been worth the sacrifice of his personal happiness and mental stability.
When I was realizing why I was drowning. Because I'm looking for all of this, whatever I thought what I was looking for, you know, to be seen as good, to be seen as good enough.
During this period, he began experiencing severe creative block. The man who had effortlessly crafted neo-soul classics suddenly couldn't write a single song that satisfied him. Every melody felt hollow. Every lyric seemed forced. He started questioning whether he had any talent at all, or if his earlier success had just been lucky timing in a music industry hungry for authentic R&B. The isolation was made worse by his complicated relationship with Kameelah Williams from the R&B group 702.
Your son's father, Musiq, was he nervous about you doing reality? And
He definitely is anti-reality TV.
Okay.
But he's my #1 supporter, and he gets that I want to be back out there.
They had met during his peak years and developed an on and off romantic connection that neither of them could seem to resolve. Their relationship became increasingly toxic as Musiq's mental health declined, with both of them using each other as emotional punching bags while pretending everything was fine for the public. In 2006, media reports circulated about his move from Def Soul to Atlantic Records in a label trade involving rapper Fabulous. But what the industry press didn't know was how desperate his situation had become. He was nearly broke, having turned down lucrative opportunities for years while struggling with depression. The label switch wasn't about creative freedom, it was about survival. Atlantic Records offered him a lifeline, but with conditions. They wanted him to return to the classic Musiq Soulchild sound that had made him famous, which was exactly what had driven him to the breakdown in the first place. He agreed because he had no choice, but internally he was planning something that would shock everyone, including himself. During the final year of his hiatus, Musiq began experimenting with alter egos as a way to cope with his mental health struggles. He started writing music under different personalities, essentially creating characters who could express the parts of himself that Musiq Soulchild wasn't allowed to explore. What started as therapy would eventually evolve into the controversial persona projects that would nearly end his career. By 2007, he was ready to return to music, but the 4 years in the wilderness had changed him fundamentally. The shy, introspective artist who had emerged from Philadelphia's streets was now hardened by depression and industry disillusionment. He had learned to compartmentalize his pain, but the coping mechanisms he had developed would prove to be destructive. The comeback album Louvain Musique was completed using a combination of his own writing and production from Atlantic's team. But Musiq felt like a stranger recording his own music. Songs like Buddy and Teach Me were successful, but they felt hollow to him. Technically proficient, but emotionally disconnected from who he had become during those 4 dark years.
Girl, I'm so lost. Yeah. Teach me how to love.
The album hit #1 on the Billboard 200, proving that his fan base had remained loyal during his absence. But privately, Musiq knew that his return to form was just another performance, and that the real battle for his artistic soul was just beginning. By 2014, Musiq Soulchild's carefully constructed comeback had crumbled, leading him to make the most controversial decision of his career: releasing music under alter ego personalities that would alienate his entire fan base and destroy his reputation in the industry.
So I want to do something to inspire someone not to be like me, but to be like them, whoever they are.
The first persona, the Husel, emerged from his frustration with the music industry and his own creative limitations. After years of being told he had to sound like classic Musiq Soulchild, he created the Husel as a way to explore hip-hop-influenced sounds and more aggressive lyrics. But what he intended as artistic liberation became a public relations nightmare that nearly ended his career.
I don't know if people was going to say the hustle is a state of mind. The hustle is not a person. Everybody got their own interpretation of the hustle. This happened to be mine, yeah. The hustle is basically, it's an idea that was influenced by being in Atlanta.
When the Husel's debut EP dropped in July 2014, the backlash was immediate and brutal. Longtime fans felt betrayed, calling the music trash and accusing him of selling out to chase current trends. Music blogs ripped the project apart, with some writers questioning whether Musiq had lost his mind or was having some kind of breakdown. The negativity was so overwhelming that he had to disable comments on social media platforms. The criticism cut deeper than anyone realized because the Husel wasn't just a creative experiment. It was Musiq's attempt to cope with depression and industry pressure that had been building for over a decade. Every negative review felt like a personal attack on his mental health, confirming his worst fears about his worth as an artist and a person. Making matters worse was his increasingly complicated relationship with Kameelah Williams. In 2009, they had welcomed a son named Zach, but their on and off relationship became fodder for reality TV when Kameelah joined R&B Divas Atlanta in 2014. Suddenly, their private struggles were being broadcast for entertainment, with Kameelah describing their relationship as complicated and confusing to millions of viewers. The reality show portrayal was devastating for someone as private as Musiq. Viewers saw their dysfunctional dynamic play out on screen, with Kameelah revealing that they lived together but weren't married, that their son was autistic, and that Musiq was anti-reality TV, but had agreed to appear to share their story. The exposure left him feeling violated and exploited.
But yeah, I think a lot of people misinterpret the whole Husel thing. I think they only have their references to their own personal references from their point of view.
Then came the second persona disaster. Purple Wonder Love. If fans had hated the Husel, they were completely baffled by Purple Wonder Love's psychedelic-influenced sound. The project felt like the work of someone having an artistic identity crisis, which wasn't far from the truth. Musiq was using these personas to express different aspects of his personality that he felt couldn't coexist under his real name. The backlash intensified when fans discovered that the Husel had been motivated by Musiq's belief that people wanted trap-influenced sounds, only to reject it when he delivered. By 2015, Musiq found himself in an impossible position. The personas had failed commercially and critically. His relationship with Kameelah was being dissected on reality TV, and Atlantic Records was losing patience with his experimental phase. He had alienated his core fan base while failing to attract new listeners, leaving him in creative and commercial limbo. The industry whispers became harder to ignore. Musiq Soulchild had ruined his own career, and there might be no way back from the damage he had inflicted on his reputation. At 48, Musiq Soulchild finally came clean about what really happened during his career's darkest period, revealing that the personas, disappearances, and public meltdowns were all symptoms of a mental health crisis he had been hiding for nearly 2 decades. The breaking point came in 2017 when his relationship with Ashley Wright, the mother of his daughter Satori, imploded in spectacular fashion. Their brief relationship had produced a daughter in 2017, but within months, social media was buzzing with rumors that he had abandoned Wright for Kameelah Williams again. In recent interviews, Musiq revealed that his music had become the soundtrack to his trauma, rather than genuine artistic expression. Every album, every persona, every public appearance had been a way of avoiding the real work of healing that he desperately needed. The Husel wasn't just a creative experiment, it was his anger and frustration given a voice. Purple Wonder Love wasn't artistic exploration. It was his attempt to find joy and whimsy in a life that had become overwhelmingly dark. The personas failed because they were therapeutic exercises being presented as entertainment. Fans sensed the inauthenticity because Musiq wasn't creating art. He was processing trauma in real time and expecting people to pay for the privilege of watching his breakdown. His relationship with Kameelah Williams became clearer through this lens as well. Their complicated dynamic wasn't just about 2 people who couldn't figure out their feelings. It was about 2 damaged individuals using each other as emotional crutches while raising an autistic son and dealing with their own unresolved issues. The reality TV appearance wasn't about sharing their love story. It was about monetizing their dysfunction. The most devastating revelation came when Musiq admitted that he had spent most of his career feeling unworthy of the Soulchild name he had given himself. The weight of representing neo-soul's legacy while battling depression and self-doubt had created an impossible standard that drove him to increasingly desperate attempts to prove his artistic legitimacy. In 2023, at age 46, he released Victims and Villains, an album that finally addressed his mental health struggles directly rather than hiding behind personas or classic Musiq Soulchild formulas. For the first time in decades, he seemed to be making music for himself rather than for critics, fans, or industry expectations. The album represented not a comeback, but a breakthrough. The sound of an artist finally willing to be honest about his pain, instead of trying to transform it into entertainment. At 48, Musiq Soulchild had learned that healing couldn't be rushed, creativity couldn't be forced, and authenticity required more courage than any persona could provide. The rumors about his career's destruction had been true, but so had his capacity for resurrection. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.